97.3 ESPN.com has it. You can listen to all the action right there. But is the Sixers season, has it been a successful one? We'll get into that. Ben Simmons, I want to talk to Michael Kaskey-Blomain from 97.3 ESPN.com on that news that came out late last night, Michael. We had a video from Ben Simmons saying he's got the green check, the green light. He's ready to go 5-on-5. So I guess that is a huge news late last night that Simmons is now ready to start doing some work and 5-on-5, and that things are moving in the right direction with that foot.
Yeah, it's about time that the Sixers got some good news involving injuries.
No question. And let's first talk about what's next for him now. So 5-on-5, it sounds like he's not going to play in the summer, though. Should he? Do you want to see him play in the summer?
No, I don't. I think there's really no reason for him to play in the summer, especially since he, got his feet wet in the summer league last year. I really think that the summer itself should really just be all about, his conditioning and working on, aspects of his game, making sure he's totally physically healthy with the foot, everything else, getting his weight where it needs to be, just getting him physically ready. I think, I would like to see him play in the preseason. Obviously, I don't think they should just throw him out in the, in the opener, cold without any experience since last summer league. But I just don't think there's any reason to throw him out in the middle of, in July in Vegas. I think, just get him ready to roll for training camp and start fresh next season.
Yeah, I just want to play a little devil's advocate with you because I kind of agree that I don't really need to see a lot of Simmons. I don't need to see any of Simmons. I certainly don't need to see Embiid play in the summer league. That's 100%. But just to play devil's advocate, if they want him to play point guard, do you want to see him paired up with whoever they draft this year in a similar way that they used him this past summer for like 2 games in Salt Lake and maybe 2 games in Vegas just to kind of play a little point guard? I mean, does that whet your palate at all or not really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fan in me especially, of course, I would like to see him out there in the summer league with, whoever 1 or 2 picks that we end up getting in the, in the draft in June. But realistically, I think with Ben's skill set and with the, just looking at the talent level of the guys that are projected to go in the top of the lottery that we might end up with, I really think that's something that they could, bang out and work on throughout training camp and kind of get some in-game experience with it in the preseason. I don't think it would be, because it's hard to take too much away from summer league play to begin with as far as, what it would actually translate to the regular season. So, whoever they do end up drafting, obviously, in June, will probably play in the summer league. And I think, that should probably just be mainly focused on them, getting them acclimated to the league. And then once the time comes for them to pair with Simmons, I think they can start to work on that in the preseason and in training camp and whatnot.
Yeah, the Simmons thing's interesting because of the whole point guard aspect of it. Like, do you see Brett Brown running him out as, hey, you're bringing the ball up, you're setting up the offense? When he says point guard, how do you envision that?
I envision basically what you just said, Mike. I think maybe sort of along the lines of what they've been doing with Giannis Antetokounmpo out in Milwaukee this year, where he was, he's kind of the de facto point guard. He brought the ball up, not necessarily every time, but a whole lot of their possessions and kind of initiated the offense. I think, from everything that Brett said about Simmons playing point guard up to he appeared on Adrian Wojnarowski's podcast on Yahoo yesterday, I believe it came out, or this morning. And he said the same thing, that when he says point guard, he means point guard as far as, Ben's going to be the player that they inbound the ball to, and he brings the ball down and initiates the offense. So I think if that is how they're going to use him, which I certainly think he's capable of doing, especially based off, the little bit we're able to see in Summer League last year, I think it's smart just to do it right from, right off top. And, if they want to groom him to be their point guard from his first game, in the preseason or whenever he hits the floor, I think they should, put the ball in his hands and have him be the point guard, and the rest of the offense kind of, fits in around there.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, the real Mike KB on Twitter. How do you see Dario fitting next to on the same floor with a Simmons and Embiid? How does that trio work together?
I think there's actually I see a lot of potential now at this point in the season, even more so than I did a couple months ago. I think Saric's development in his shot has been huge. It's certainly still not where it needs to be. He needs to get his legs up a little more, get it a little more consistent. But I think he showed that he certainly has the ability to not he was always known he was able to make plays, which obviously he showed throughout the year. But he can just score in a variety of ways, both from the outside. He's not afraid to mix it up down low at all and bang down there. And I think as the season went on, he grew more comfortable putting the ball on the floor and taking it to the basket too. So he really kind of developed into an all-around offensive player throughout the season, which I think, is ideal for, whether or not he ends up starting next year alongside Ben, or if they, want to have him kind of run the show with the second unit. I think that's, something that Brett obviously will have to work out. But either way, I think that, even more so than I did at the beginning of the year, I can see him fitting in, if let's say in the starting lineup, alongside Ben as another forward that can both initiate the offense and, hopefully he works on his shot throughout the year and can be a guy that can spot up off ball also.
I want to ask you about Timothe Luwawu-Cabarrot, because here's a guy who seemingly every night is getting a new season high. Is this something we should be excited about, or more because there's not a lot of options out there? What do you see in his game? Is that a guy that is in the rotation now next year?
That's a great question, Mike. I think he has played himself into the rotation. Like you said, I think the opportunity that was in front of him this year was kind of the result of, like you said, there's really no one else. It's that's put him out there. But I really think, especially over the past maybe month or so, he's really kind of stepped into the role, almost kind of the same as Dario. I think it took him a little bit of time to get, accustomed to the league and the style of play. But I've seen his on-court confidence grow. His shooting has definitely become a little bit more consistent, which is nice to see. And I see that similar, with the shooting comes a little bit more confidence to put the ball on the ground, take it to the hole, which, he did on Monday night against Indiana when he had his career-high 24. So I don't know if he's necessarily a long-term potential answer as a starting wing, but I think at this point he's certainly a guy that is in the team's mind as a guy that could be maybe a rotation wing player coming in with the going forward as they continue to build. Yeah, and I'm certainly excited to see where he continues going forward with his development.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect for them because people just kind of. I don't know. I guess when they drafted him, you don't think much of him. He's a late first-round pick, and you're kind of like, don't know anything about him. Didn't see him play in college, obviously. He's an international player, so there's not a lot of expectations. But, they made correct me if I'm wrong, they got rid of Hollis earlier this year to try to create more time for him. And now as the guys have gotten hurt, he's kind of just been, had to have more time, and he has really grabbed it and turned himself into a nice little player all of a sudden. And I really like his length on the perimeter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that drew them to him initially, too. I think he kind of has that prototypical size of, what you want in today's wing player. Like you said, he's long and athletic, and he kind of projects as a two-way player. And, the move to get rid of Hollis was, certainly part of that had to do with getting TLC some more minutes. And I think since that time, he's showed himself to be, nothing against Hollis Thompson. I, appreciated his time with the Sixers, but TLC has already shown to be just a more all-around offensive player. I think his shot might not be quite where Hollis's was, at that point, but he seems to be a little bit more of a playmaker and able to make plays and take it to the basket a little bit more. So I really do think that he has potential for being a rotation player with this team moving forward.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain's with us talking Sixers. Monday night before the Pacer game, Brett Brown had said Simmons, Bayless, Covington, Dario, and Embiid. Now, Bayless is a guy who's kind of been a forgotten nugget in all of this. The 3 games he played, the one game he played really well in. The second game he played pretty well. And I think they won, 2 of the 3 games he played, or maybe one of them, but he had played really well. He seems to be a pretty interesting cog moving forward here, Jared Bayless.
Yeah, I like how you phrase that. He does kind of seem to be, a forgotten guy, obviously, since he was really not able to play much this season. And he was a guy that was, projected to be, he would have been the team's starting point guard, throughout the season, from the beginning if he had not been injured. I think that was the plan when they brought him in. And I think that's still potentially, as you said, Brett kind of alluded to that. he's not a guy that I think the Sixers are, looking off now with this injury. I think he's a guy that they think, obviously things could change depending on who they draft or what types of moves they make in free agency. But that's a guy I think that they see that would be a good fit next to Ben Simmons, in that if Ben is playing that point guard role, I think Jared is kind of that combo guard that he could play off ball if he needs to, because he can shoot a little bit and has the athletic ability to take it to the basket. Or, in certain situations, he could be the guy bringing the ball up and initiating an offense. He's a good type of guard that can play both spots, I think, and he would fit. I think they think he would fit well next to Ben. So I think, he's certainly still a big part of the team's plans next season, even though I think, like you said, a lot of the fans might have kind of forgot about him this year.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, the real Mike KB on Twitter. Mike, who is your NBA Rookie of the Year?
I mean, I would go Joel if I had a vote, which I don't. But I think that you just got to give it to him, based off the quality of play that he had in the amount of time that he played. Obviously I appreciate what Dario's done. I'm not taking anything away from Malcolm Brogdon, but I think, Joel was just far and away the best rookie. I think he's deserving of the award. I tweeted out yesterday that I wouldn't actually hate the idea of co-rookie of the year, because it was kind of split. Obviously,
that
Joel
might be the best way to
half.
go. That might be the best way to go, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely, because it was almost like a split season. It was, Joel was clearly the most dominant rookie through mid-January when he went down, and since then, Saric has really taken the mantle and ran and really developed and helped the team since then. So I think, whether it be something that they split between them or they could just mail the trophy to Sam Hinkie, but I do think Joel is the most deserving.
We did. That's funny. We did a little digging on that. Embiid in 31 games was 13 and 18, and Saric in the games without Embiid was 11 and 24. So I really look at Saric as entering the Rookie of the Year picture post Embiid, which was about 35 games. So if you're willing to judge him on 35 games, you probably should be willing to judge Embiid on his 31 games and surmise that his 31 games were more impactful than Saric's 35, because you probably weren't considering Saric during the time that Embiid was here for Rookie of the Year, and therefore that's how I kind of came up with my – and I don't love the fact that there's only 31 games, but it's such a weak field that I think you have a super extraordinary situation here, and that's why you give it to a super extraordinary talent.
You're right. I agree, too. The level of talent, the playing field other than those two is definitely – there's no one else that really jumps out. I think that kind of like you said, the fact that Dario wasn't really even considered for the first half and then Joel missed the second half might end up working against them in the long run. I think some people will say, well, Dario only played well in the second half and Joel only played in the first half, and then they'll, look toward Malcolm Brogdon or Milwaukee, who's been playing, consistently throughout the season, and, potentially give him the nod. But if you're talking about the best rookie, the one the most memorable, the most productive, you can't look anywhere else but Joel.
Michael, I want to get your take on a couple of things as we finish out the season tonight. The role the Lakers have had the last couple of weeks. Tell our listeners how that has kind of been interesting and factored into the NBA draft lottery.
I mean, it's just kind of ironic. They're sitting at five straight wins right now, which is by far their longest win streak of the season. Obviously they are trying to keep that their own pick, which, will come to the Sixers if it is not within the top three. And, winning all of these games, which are completely meaningless for this, obviously for the season, they're well out of the playoff picture. It hurts them in terms of keeping that pick because, they want to have the best possible chances of getting, a top three pick. The better, the worse your record is, the better chances you're going to have of landing that top three pick. So, I know I personally and a lot of other Sixers fans have been watching this, this little mini win streak here in Los Angeles with kind of a smirk, because it just seems kind of, strange that they'd be pretty terrible all season. And then with, their potentially pick dangling on the line there, that they decide to run off, their best win streak of the season.
So are they locked into that spot right now? Is that how this? Is there anything that can change tonight?
No, they're locked into the third spot now with their current win streak. Nothing will change with them. It can change with the Sixers, obviously, with their matchup with the Knicks. The Sixers are currently tied with Orlando for the fourth worst record. So obviously for lottery purposes, the Sixers would want a loss tonight, and that would lock them into that fourth spot and give them at least about a 10% chance at the number one overall and a 33% chance at a top three pick with their own pick.
Yeah, and the Kings are also kind of factored in. Are the Kings still a factor in all this stuff here? I know, obviously, the pick swap here, but are the Kings in any position to make any movement?
Their exact positioning is not locked in yet. They are, as it stands right now, they're in the 8th spot. So, it doesn't look like the pick swap would necessarily pay dividends if it came out. Right now their odds of landing this top pick in the draft right now sit at just 2.2%. They have about an 8% chance of getting in the top three. So, I mean, it's certainly it's still relevant, and obviously it's a lottery, so, things could change. It could be leapfrogging, when the Cavaliers ended up getting the first pick 2 years in a row. So, obviously that's something that the Sixers have in their back pocket, but right now it looks like they will probably end up keeping their own pick, and they have to hope that Lakers pick falls out of the top three.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain's with us here. The Sixers play on the Knicks tonight. We kind of threw the question out there earlier, about would you deem the Sixers season a success? I mean, they're going to finish with at least 18 more wins than they had the year before. A lot of people look at it and say, how do you have a 2018 win and say that's a successful season? But do you look at the season that the Sixers had as a success?
I say yes with an asterisk, because if obviously the two main storylines of the season were Ben Simmons missing the year and Joel, how well he played, and then him missing the second half of the year with the meniscus injury. If those injuries end up being something that go forward and continue and hinder the progress of those two players, then all of the progress that the other players made this season will basically be for naught. I mean, as the team that's constructed now, they go as Embiid and Simmons go. So, if the injuries they suffered this season end up being something that, hinders them more so than past this year, then it would certainly, I don't think you could say it was a success. But otherwise, as far as the development of some of the other guys, I think you would certainly say it's a success. I mean, you finally get Dario on the court after, 2 years of waiting for him. You finally got Joel on the court to see what he was able to do when he is healthy, which is, obviously something that fans have been waiting to see. And then you got to look at a lot of other guys that, will potentially have roles with the team moving forward and kind of probably fill out the depth if they end up adding a couple of high caliber players in the draft and free agency, then some of these guys that developed this year can bump down to the bench and really fill out the depth of the team moving forward. You look, guys like Rashawn Holmes, TJ McConnell, TLC, who we were talking about earlier, guys like that who, you weren't necessarily sure about heading into this year, but got to, really get a better feel for. So, overall, I would say that this season, yes, was a success for the team, but, still everything hinges on the health of those two guys. So, we really have to see how that pans out moving forward.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I know the playoff matchups aren't set yet, but I know there's some interesting things out there so far with the playoff matchups out there. What do we got? We got San Antonio. We are Golden State, number one. They're going to take on Portland. That should be fun. What do you got? Oklahoma City and Houston? Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one right there.
Awesome. I mean, you see those two guys for a 7-game series. Hopefully that would be unbelievable. So the NBA playoffs, I'm Michael, I know that a lot of people have embraced, what the Sixers have done, and to lose is better, but I'm very thankful to see games that actually have some meaning behind them starting this weekend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a breath of fresh air after covering a team for 82 games and games that are, more so focused on player development and where the outcome doesn't really matter, to watch, high-level basketball with high stakes. It's, for any basketball fan, it's something. It's exciting, and it gives you
The whole league, though,
Go ahead,
Mike. I
Ted.
mean, the whole league has turned into either you want to be really bad and lose, and even the teams at the top, like the Cavs, are at the point where they don't even care if they're the number one seed. Like, it's amazing how the devaluing of what winning means in this league has really reared its head this year.
Yeah, and I think this is the year that you see the most glaring difference between regular season and postseason. Like you said, LeBron James basically said, that the regular season is meaningless. Basically by not playing in the statements he's made, which I'm sure Adam Silver wasn't happy about. But I think that's the way a lot of players really kind of approach it now. It's all the playoffs. Playoff basketball is one of the best the best forms of basketball you can watch, highest level. But I think that the difference between regular season and how seriously it's taken compared to playoffs this year especially was, very evident.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to that being over this weekend. We got by the way, all the West teams are in. It's just now some seeding over there. And in the East, you've got Chicago and Miami still with an opportunity to flip-flop in that 8 spot tonight. And Indiana still has not clinched. Everybody else is in. So the NBA playoffs will be determined after the games tonight. The real Mike KB on Twitter, Michael Kaskey-Blomain over at 97.3 ESPN.com. I'm sure as the draft starts to take center stage and NBA free agency, we'll be speaking with Michael a lot this summer. Pal, take care.
Thanks, Mike. You too.